Imagine a substance without which a human being would die within a few days. It covers more than 70% of the Earth's surface. It is found inside every cell of your body. It can heal or it can kill. It can be sweet, bitter, metallic, holy, dead, and even explosive. And the strangest thing is that most people drink it every day without even knowing what is actually happening inside their bodies. Today, we will dive into the world of water and find out, why does water have different tastes? How much should you really drink? Why can't seawater be consumed? Which sea is the saltiest in the world? What are holy water and dead water? And is it true that water can remember information? Prepare a glass of water. After this video, you will never look at it the same way again. Why does water have a different taste? It would seem that water is simply H2O, 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom. Then why does one water seem sweet, another bitter, and a third resemble a rusty pipe? The secret lies in impurities. Absolutely pure laboratory water has almost no taste. What we call the taste of water is actually the taste of the minerals it dissolves during its journey through the ground. Calcium adds a slight sweetness. Magnesium can give bitterness. Iron creates a metallic aftertaste. Hydrogen sulfide resembles the smell of rotten eggs. That is why water from different countries tastes different. In Switzerland, it is one way. In the United States, it is another. In Ukraine, it is a third. Some tasters even hold professional water competitions just like wine competitions. Yes, real water sommeliers exist. What does water do to the body? The human body consists of approximately 60% water. The brain is almost 75% water. Blood is more than 90% water. Even bones contain water. Every second, water transports nutrients, removes toxins, cools the body, participates in energy production. Losing just 2% of body fluid can reduce concentration and performance. A loss of 10% can cause serious health problems. A loss of more than 15% becomes life-threatening. That is why water is more important than food. A person can survive more than a month without food. Without water, only a few days. How much should you drink? You have probably heard the rule. Drink 8 glasses of water a day. But where did it come from? In reality, there's no universal standard. The need depends on body weight, air temperature, physical activity, age, diet. The average person needs approximately 30 to 35 milliliters of water for every kilogram of body weight. If you weigh 70 kilograms, 70 multiplied by 35 equals about 2.5 liters per day. But this includes water from food as well. Interestingly, excessive water consumption is also dangerous. There is a condition called water intoxication. When a person drinks too much water in a short period of time, the sodium level in the blood drops so much that brain swelling can occur. Why are seas and oceans salty? Every drop of rain washes minerals out of the soil. Rivers carry them into the oceans. Water evaporates, salt remains. Millions of years of this process created today's oceans. The average salinity of the world ocean is about 3.5%. This means that every liter of seawater contains approximately 35 grams of salt. The saltiest seas and oceans in the world. When we hear the word ocean, it seems that all the water there is the same. But that is far from true. The salt level in different oceans and seas varies so greatly that in some places a person easily floats on the surface, while in others, the water is almost fresh. Let us take a journey around the world and find out where the saltiest waters on the planet are located. Let's start with the largest ocean on Earth. The Pacific Ocean occupies almost 1/3 of the entire surface of the planet. Its area is larger than all the continents combined. The average salinity here is about 3.4 to 3.5%. Why isn't the Pacific Ocean the saltiest? The reason is simple. An enormous number of rivers flow into it. In addition, a lot of rain falls in the equatorial zone, diluting the salty water. That is why its salinity is slightly below average. At the deepest point of the Pacific Ocean, the Mariana Trench, the depth exceeds 11 kilometers. If Mount Everest were placed there, its peak would still remain underwater. Now we head to the Atlantic Ocean. It is considered the saltiest among the major oceans. The average salinity is approximately 3.6 to 3.7%. The difference may seem small, but for oceanographers, it is very significant. The reason for the high salinity is linked to strong evaporation and lower rainfall in some regions. It is the Atlantic that carries enormous flows of warm water that influence Europe's climate. Without them, most of Europe would be much colder. Imagine this. Every second, the Gulf Stream transports more water than all the rivers in the world combined. The Indian Ocean. Average salinity, 3.5 to 3.6%. The Indian Ocean is unique because its behavior is controlled by monsoons. In summer, incredible amounts of rain fall in some areas. In winter, strong evaporation begins. Because of this, salinity can vary greatly depending on the region. It is here that the Arabian Sea is located, one of the saltiest parts of the ocean. The surface water temperature in some areas exceeds 30 degrees Celsius. This makes it one of the warmest oceans on the planet. Around Antarctica lies the youngest officially recognized ocean on Earth. It is called the Southern Ocean. Average salinity, 3.4%. Due to melting ice, fresh water constantly flows into it. That is why the salinity is lower here. Water temperatures often approach the freezing point. Yet even under such conditions, whales, seals, and millions of penguins live here. Interestingly, the Southern Ocean helps cool the entire planet by absorbing enormous amounts of heat from the atmosphere. The Arctic Ocean. This is the smallest ocean in the world, and at the same time, the least salty. Average salinity, only 3.0 to 3.3%. The reason is obvious. Large Siberian rivers flow into it. In addition, ice is constantly melting. Because of this, the water becomes less salty. In some areas, it is diluted so much that it approaches freshwater. Despite the harsh conditions, polar bears, walruses, narwhals, and Greenland whales live here, the saltiest seas in the world. Now let's move on to the true record holders. The Red Sea. Salinity, about 4%. This is one of the saltiest seas on the planet. The water temperature here is very high. There's almost no rain. Hardly any rivers flow into it. Water evaporates faster than it is replenished. That is why the concentration of salt constantly increases. The Mediterranean Sea. Salinity, about 3.8%. Due to strong evaporation, it is saltier than most oceans. If not for the constant inflow of water through the Strait of Gibraltar, the sea level would gradually decline. The Dead Sea, and here is the absolute champion. Salinity, approximately 34%. This is almost 10 times more than in the world ocean. Imagine this. 1 liter of water here contains more than 300 grams of salt. Because of this, fish cannot live here. In fact, that is why it was called the Dead Sea. When a person enters the water, they are literally pushed to the surface. Drowning here is extremely difficult. It was the photographs of people lying on the water and reading newspapers that made the Dead Sea famous worldwide. But there is one catch. If this water gets into your eyes, the pain will be very intense. Therefore, swimming here requires caution. And although it is called a sea, it is actually a large salt lake between Israel and Jordan. The Dead Sea is so salty that real crystalline salt caves form along its shores, resembling the scenery of a science fiction movie. But if there is so much water in the oceans and seas, why can a person lost among endless waves die of thirst? The answer may surprise you. It would seem there is sea all around. You are thirsty. Why not simply drink the water? Because the human kidneys are not capable of removing that much salt. To get rid of the salt from 1 liter of seawater, the body would have to spend more fresh water than it received. As a result, the person becomes even more dehydrated. That is why victims of shipwrecks often die faster if they begin drinking seawater. Holy water, a mystery thousands of years old. Imagine this. In the middle of winter, thousands of people stand near a river or a church. Outside there is frost. Ice covers the water. But people still come here with bottles, canisters, and buckets. Why? Because they believe that on this day the water becomes special. We are talking about holy water. Water that for thousands of years has been considered a symbol of purification, protection, and blessing. But what is holy water really? And why do people all over the world give it special properties? Even in the most ancient civilizations, water was considered a boundary between worlds. In ancient Egypt, it symbolized the birth of life. In Greece, it was used for purification before entering temples. Among many peoples, there was a belief that water could absorb negative energy and cleanse the soul. In Christianity, holy water appeared in the very first centuries of the Church's existence. During a special religious service, a priest reads prayers and blesses the water. Particularly famous is the great blessing of water on Epiphany. After that, believers take the water home. They sprinkle their homes with it. They bless people with it. They use it during prayer. Some keep such water for years. And this is where the most interesting part begins. Many people claim that holy water can remain unspoiled for a long time. Numerous legends and disputes have arisen around this. Some consider it a miracle. Others explain it by the purity of the source, silver objects that were sometimes used during the blessing, or storage conditions. Science does not find any special new chemical elements in holy water. The formula remains exactly the same, H2O. But for millions of people, its power lies not in chemistry. It lies in what it symbolizes: faith, hope, and spiritual protection. And perhaps the greatest mystery of holy water lies not in the water itself, but in the meaning that people place in it. Dead water, the most terrifying water from Slavic legends. Among all the magical objects mentioned in fairy tales and legends, there is one especially eerie one. Not a sword, not a cursed artifact, not a wizard's book, but ordinary water. More precisely, dead water. Since ancient times, the Slavs believed that there was a special water connected to the world of the dead. It was not drunk. It was not used to quench thirst. It was used for completely different purposes. In ancient tales, dead water could not bring a person back to life. On the contrary, it belonged to the realm of death. It was believed that this water could close wounds, stop bleeding, and stitch together a body after battle. That is why in fairy tales, a fallen hero was first sprinkled with dead water. Only after that was another water used, living water. Our ancestors believed that dead water took away everything unnecessary: pain, illnesses, curses, evil forces, and even traces of death. Some legends said that dead water flowed in the underworld where the souls of the deceased lived. It was there that witches, sorcerers, or fairy tale heroes who dared to descend into the kingdom of the dead could obtain it. There was a belief that water from certain springs or wells could be dead, especially if the source was located near ancient burials, burial mounds, or places people considered cursed. Such water was feared and not used for drinking, but it was sometimes taken for magical rituals. In folk magic, dead water was used to bring something to an end. It could symbolically wash away illness. It was sprinkled on the threshold after a funeral. Sometimes it was used in rituals for breaking ties with the past. Our ancestors believed that dead water could close the door to evil spirits and prevent them from returning to the world of the living. In some regions, there was a belief that water collected at midnight at a crossroads or near an abandoned well gained special power. It was this kind of water that was sometimes called dead water. Many frightening stories are connected with it. People said that if you looked into such water at night, you might see more than just your own reflection, or hear the voices of those who had long since left the world of the living. Of course, there is no evidence for any of this. These are only ancient legends and folk tales. Nevertheless, they show how important a place water occupied in the imagination of our ancestors. For them, water was not just a liquid. It was a boundary between life and death, between the known and the unknown, between the world of people and the world of spirits. And although today we view such stories as beautiful folklore, the image of dead water continues to live on in books, films, fairy tales, and legends. After all, people have always feared death, and they have always tried to find a force capable of controlling it. Perhaps that is why stories about dead water survived hundreds of generations and have reached our time. Can water remember information? And now we move on to one of the most controversial and mysterious topics associated with water. Imagine this. What if the water you are holding in your hands right now remembers everything it has come into contact with throughout its history? Every river, every ocean, every living creature, every word spoken near it. It sounds like science fiction. But this very idea has been causing debates between supporters of mysticism and scientists for many years. It all began with an unusual hypothesis called water memory. Its essence is simple. Even if all substances dissolved in water are removed, it supposedly retains some information about them. In other words, water seems to remember something that is no longer there. To many people, this sounded like a true revolution. If it were true, water could become a kind of information carrier, almost like a hard drive or a flash drive. But the story became even stranger. In the early 2000s, Japanese author Masaru Emoto claimed that water reacts to words, music, and human emotions. He demonstrated photographs of ice crystals. According to him, water that was spoken to with kind words formed beautiful, symmetrical crystals, while water that heard insults or aggression created chaotic and ugly forms. The world was amazed. Books sold in millions of copies. People began saying thank you to water. Some even placed glasses of water next to speakers playing classical music. It seemed that proof had been found that water possesses memory. But then scientists got involved, and this is where the problems began. When independent researchers tried to repeat these experiments, they could not obtain the same results. It turned out that beautiful and ugly crystals could be found in almost any ice sample, and the results largely depended on which photographs were chosen for display. As of today, there is no convincing scientific evidence that water is capable of storing information in a mystical sense. From the point of view of modern science, water molecules are constantly moving. Their bonds rearrange themselves billions of times per second. Therefore, long-term memory, in the form described by supporters of the theory, appears unlikely. And yet the story is not over, because water itself continues to surprise scientists. The more we study it, the more unusual properties we discover. For example, water is one of the few substances that expands when it freezes. That is why ice floats on the surface. Without this feature, life in the oceans might not exist at all. So, does water remember information? If we speak the language of science, there is no evidence so far. If we speak the language of legends and mysticism, many people still believe that water is capable of preserving the imprint of words, thoughts, and events. And perhaps that is why water remains not just a liquid, but one of the greatest mysteries of our planet. Because even today, we cannot confidently say that we know absolutely everything about it. The strangest, scariest, and most mysterious stories about water. Water seems like something ordinary to us. We see it every day. We drink it. We cook with it. We bathe in it. But throughout human history, water has been a source not only of life, it has also become the cause of fear, legends, and real mysteries that still have no final explanation. Right now, you will hear several stories that sound like the plot of a horror movie, but most of them actually happened. The disappearing lake. In 2007, residents of one region of Chile witnessed a strange event. A lake that had existed for many years simply disappeared. Completely. When people came to it, instead of water, they saw a huge, dry depression. Boats lay at the bottom. The water had vanished almost without a trace. Scientists explain this through geological processes and changes in underground water channels. But local residents continued for a long time to talk about curses and supernatural forces. The boiling river. Imagine a river where an animal that falls into it cannot escape alive. Not because of crocodiles, not because of piranhas, but because the water there is literally boiling. In the jungles of Peru, there really is a river called Shanai Timpishka. In some places, the water temperature reaches almost 100 degrees Celsius. Small animals that fall into it can suffer fatal burns. For centuries, local shamans have considered it sacred and connected to the spirits of the earth, the man who survived in the middle of the ocean. In 2014, the whole world was discussing the story of fisherman Jose Salvador Alvarenga. His boat became lost in the Pacific Ocean. He drifted for more than a year, without food supplies, without fresh water. To survive, he collected rainwater, ate fish, and even drank the blood of birds he caught. When he was found, many people initially did not believe his story, but it turned out to be true. It is one of the most astonishing survival stories in human history. Water that burns. And finally, one more fact that sounds like complete nonsense. How can water burn? But in some regions of the world, because of natural methane rising from the ground and mixing with water, you can hold a lighter near the surface of a body of water and see real flames. It looks as if the water itself is burning. Such phenomena often became the source of ancient legends about enchanted lakes and cursed springs. Every day we turn on the tap, pour a glass of water, and we do not even think that we are holding one of the most amazing substances in the universe in our hands. It shapes continents, creates oceans, sustains life, and at the same time remains one of the greatest mysteries of science. Write in the comments, which fact about water surprised you the most? And don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because even more incredible mysteries of our planet lie ahead.